My name is Santiago, and I have a man-eating monster as a pet. Today, I was working at the mini-mart on the street as usual. At that moment, a person who called himself Jacob walked in. He only bought items worth tens of dollars in total. He started cursing loudly at me just because plastic bags were chargeable. Afterwards, he even called the boss. He mocked me for being a test-cracking prodigy from small towns, or that kind of accusing personality. He then went on to say that I am a working-class person from the bottom of society. I answered the boss's phone call. The boss asked me to calm things down. Let him go straight. I pondered over it. I can't figure out why there are people like this. I feel very depressed. The person who is supposed to change shifts with me is late again. I'm pondering all of this on my way home. I had planned to go back home and play a game to unwind from the frustrations of the day. However, I never expected that I would actually see it. It says I am the test-cracking prodigy from small towns. Jacob is in his hardware store. I felt a surge of indignation in my heart again. Later, I entered the shop. He thought I came to reclaim the venue when he saw me. I pretended to tell him, "The lights in my house are broken, so I came to buy light bulbs." But unexpectedly, he said directly, "What? Can't you see that my store is already closed? Get out quickly." So I came up with a plan and said, "Actually, I'm not very good at changing light bulbs. If you can help me change the light bulb, I can transfer 300 yuan to you. What do you think?" When this person heard about transferring 300 yuan, their expression immediately changed, saying, "Really? A young man who doesn't even know how to change a light bulb? Do you young people only know how to take exams? The light bulb costs 12. Transfer me a total of 312 yuan." After saying that, he took his tools and prepared to follow me home. I walked ahead with a gloomy face all the way. The phrase, "test-cracking prodigy from small towns," that he said kept echoing in my mind. Soon, I took him back home. Upon entering the door, he looked at the trash bag in the corner and complained to this test-cracking prodigy from small towns. But thinking about transferring 300 yuan, he restrained himself. Then he followed my guidance to a room. However, because it was too dark, he took out his phone for light. Then he directly asked me to find a chair. But before he finished speaking, I pushed him directly to the ground. Jacob's brain hadn't reacted yet. He cursed at me again. "What do you, a test-cracking prodigy from small towns, want to do?" I just looked at him coldly and said, "Why can't the world just leave me alone? Why do you have to provoke me?" Then, I slowly closed the door and said, "Amir, remember to eat properly this time." After hearing what I said, Jacob immediately got angry and shouted, "Open the door quickly, you test-cracking prodigy from small towns." As he was about to get up to continue cursing, there came a low growl from behind. Jacob immediately took out his phone to take a photo. But he didn't expect a giant abyssal hound was coming towards him. I stood at the door, supporting my chin, listening to the wonderful chewing sound. My heart instantly felt much more relieved. The next day, I went to work at the mini-mart. But I never thought I had just arrived at the mini-mart. I was scolded by the boss as soon as I arrived. Yesterday when I was working, there was 300 yuan missing from the account. I was about to explain that it was the person who switched shifts with me yesterday who was late. To show his apology, he let me go first. He will take responsibility for the mistake. But the boss indiscriminately said he would deduct it from my salary. I sighed and he heard it. But then I was scolded by him. Then I went to the lounge to change clothes. I thought about whether to bring the boss back to Amir for an extra meal. But after much consideration, I still suppressed this idea. The time came to the evening. The person who changed shifts with me was late again. I originally got off work at 9, but I ended up waiting until 10. I saw that person hadn't arrived yet. I sent him countless messages, but he didn't reply. Unfortunately, I waited for another half an hour. The person came slowly to the counter to switch shifts with me. He said he was going to buy shoes. Bargained for a long time. When I asked him about the missing 300 yuan in the account yesterday, he actually said that he found it was 300 short when he balanced the account yesterday. It was me who made a mistake in balancing the account yesterday. I was about to argue with him, but he just went straight to say, "Who knows? Anyway, I didn't make a mistake in calculation. I don't want to be entangled too much. I just want to get off work." Say to him, "Come over and settle the accounts together." He still didn't respond. I mentioned again for him to come over and settle the accounts together. But I didn't expect that. This person actually got angry with me. "Don't be so petty and annoying like a small-minded person." I fired back directly. I never expected this person to speak so directly. "What? Do you want me to kneel down and apologize? I have already made so many concessions as your senior. What more do you want?" I initiated the conversation. "Stop beating around the bush. I asked you to come over for settling accounts. I am about to get off work. Can't you understand?" He directly grabbed my collar, preparing to start a fight with me. But I just looked at him with a gloomy face. In my mind, I was wondering whether to take him back to Amir as well. On the other side, Amir was trembling, calling my name and saying, "Santiago! Come back quickly! I'm so hungry!" The person who was taking over my shift at that moment was directly startled by my gaze. Then I spoke in a deep voice again. "Let go! Quick, do the accounts." He saw the situation and then let go of his hand. After I finished everything, it was late at night again. On the way, I thought about these things more and more angrily. I changed my clothes when I got back home. But I found Amir talking to me non-stop. "Santiago, I'm so hungry. I didn't expect it either. I just fed him yesterday. I didn't expect it to be hungry again today. Just when I was thinking about making it endure for a while. It actually opened its mouth wide and was prepared to pounce towards me. I immediately ran out upon seeing the situation. I locked the door. I realized that if I didn't bring someone back for it, I would probably become its food as well. I spent a terrifying night. The next day, as I was on my way to work, I was thinking, should I buy some tiger food for Amir? The door suddenly opened. That person didn't step back today after all. This person also brought a girl. The girl said hello to me as soon as she came up. I thought to myself that his girlfriend is unexpectedly so pretty. The two of them then held hands and came in front of me. They directly showed how affectionate they are in front of me. I wondered in my heart, where did she lose her mind? How could she be in a relationship with such a guy? At this moment, home. Amir, who has turned into a monster, is going crazy. He gnaws on the wall saying, "I'm so hungry! So hungry!" And after a while on my end, the accounts have been reconciled. I am preparing to leave. They both noticed and greeted me. And just as I was leaving, his girlfriend actually waved to me. Later, she flirted with me. This instantly made single me blush. It seems that person's girlfriend is cheating on him, but he doesn't know. I left Minimart and was thinking, if I go home like this, I might not make it. Thinking back and forth, I ended up buying some things at a nearby store before returning home. The moment the door opened, a deep abyss-like giant mouth rushed towards me. I quickly grabbed the things and shouted loudly, trying to wake up. "I bought you some food!" Saying so, the thing in my hand was snatched away by it directly. Then I trembled and sat on the ground. I asked it if it was feeling better, but never expected. This little thing is not enough for it to eat. It continued to talk to me. "I'm so hungry. I want to eat live ones." After listening, I said, "Stop joking. Amir, I can't harm innocent bystanders for you. Unless it's those who deserve it. How about this? Amir, I'll make a deal with you. I know you did this because you were too hungry. But we can't forget our bottom line as human beings. I will find a way to get food for you. Aren't there still bad people around? You can only eat those bad people. People who are useless to society. Got it? Even if your appearance changes. But you are still a human. It said. Got it. After that, I fell silent for a moment and then said, wait a little longer. Endure a bit more. I happen to know a scum. I am lying in bed browsing the news now. I am thinking about how to get food for Amir. And just at this moment, there came the sound of ping-pong from another room. I was immediately awakened. Slowly, I made my way to Amir's room. Asked what was going on. What happened? It saw my arrival. And it was yelling at me again, saying, I'm so hungry! I'm so hungry! I heard these words and said directly, I've told you to be patient. The food will be here soon. I will bring it to your room. Do not come out, all right? It heard this and let out a roar behind me. A large group of people was holding shovels and conducting some special ceremony. Among the crowd stood the girlfriend of the person who had taken over my shift before. Some time later, the young woman returned home. At this time, the person who had taken over my shift was listening to the news reporting on a serial murder case. What a lunatic. Is he even human? People will eventually die. More than half of them are better off dead earlier. And for those who shouldn't be alive, they should be redeemed as soon as possible. The man heard this statement and retorted, it's the same old stuff again. What are the chances of half the population? What about me? Should I live or should I be redeemed? The girl suddenly trembled, preparing to say something. You? Before she could finish speaking, she was immediately interrupted by the man. Shall we go to church together? No. Since when does a church decide who should be redeemed? When he saw the girl's face darken, he immediately changed his tone and said, Okay. I will definitely go next Monday, all right? Although I know it's a scam. But after all, I love you. I have to compromise. When the girl heard these words, she directly tightened her grip on the fruit knife in her hand. She stood up and slowly walked towards the man. She said with her mouth, what should be redeemed and what should not be redeemed? What do you think? Should one live on or leave this world? After saying that, she walked up behind the man. She was about to make her move. At this moment, the man's phone suddenly rang. This let him escape a disaster. Shortly after, he turned around and was startled by the girl behind him. The girl immediately hid the fruit behind her. She comforted him with a few words. He prepared to leave. Seeing this, the girl prepared to go out with him. Time passed by second. On the other side, I heard a knocking on the door. I directly opened the door, only to find out that it was the man's girlfriend who had come to my house. I spoke up and asked, why did you come here? The girl replied directly, oh, right. I came with my boyfriend. But it's raining heavily outside. Can I go in first? Before I could say anything, she directly walked into the room on her own. She said, your home is amazing. Do you live here alone? Without waiting for me to speak, she turned around and asked me, do you believe in eternal life? I was stunned and stood still in place. Shortly after, there was another loud noise coming from the adjacent bedroom. Upon seeing this, she was ready to go and investigate. I nervously said to her, I have a cat. Upon hearing that it was a cat, she became interested immediately. The woman actually walked directly towards there to open the door. I directly grabbed her hand to stop her actions. And just at this moment, the person who was relieving me from my shift actually opened the door and walked in. He shouted, what are you doing? Speak up. What's going on with you two? Why are you acting so sneakily? He strode towards me. I was about to explain, But no matter what I said, he still couldn't hear me. I got anxious. Furious, I said, "I'm not joking. Get out of here now." But the next second, it turned into a mirror, a monster, who rushed out and devoured him. Once I realized, it was already too late. Then I turned to look at the man's girlfriend. But little did I expect that when she saw this scene, she was not only unafraid, but also showed a very happy smile. My heart began to feel extremely scared and uneasy. A thought flashed through my mind. That is to kill her. That is the only way to cover up this matter. Yes. Anyway, this is not the first time. If this matter leaks out, it will be doomed. Just thinking about it. I slowly got up and took a knife. My body couldn't stop shaking. I only had one thought in my mind. To kill her. To take care of her as soon as possible before she escapes. I turned my head and looked in her direction. She was kneeling on the ground, muttering with her mouth. "It's Master T. Greetings to the all-knowing and almighty Master T. What is she doing?" I was immediately shocked by the weird scene in front of my eyes. "No. There's no time. We need to kill her quickly." I slowly walked towards her, holding something in my hand. That fear made me tremble and stopped my body from moving forward. My heart was telling me to act quickly. "Hurry, act." The woman at that moment was pleading. "Please redeem the poor little lamb. Master T, whom we believe in, please guide us onto the path of eternal life." In the end, the fear in my heart still prevailed. The thing in my hand fell directly on the ground. I said to her, "Quick, let's go!" Seeing that she didn't react, I continued. I said, "Hurry up and get out. Leave quickly." I didn't expect to hear the girl slowly stand up and smile at me, saying, "Santiago, it seems like you've misunderstood. That person is Master T." I didn't care about what she said and just asked her to leave quickly. "Take advantage of the fact that I'm not thinking of killing you right now. So get out of here quickly." After hearing me say this, the woman remained silent for a while. She smiled and said to me, "Should I go first? It was really nice meeting you. See you next time." After saying so, she left. I watched her leaving and recalled her strange behaviors one by one. Especially when I saw her witnessing her boyfriend being eaten, blood splattered on her face, she not only didn't panic, she also revealed an extremely crazy smile. I felt a chill run down my spine out of the blue. Just like that, I slumped on the ground for the whole night. The next day, I went to work as usual. But I never expected that she would appear in front of me again, as if nothing had ever happened. I immediately became nervous. She walked straight up to me and asked what time I got off work. I stuttered in response. "What are you asking for?" she continued. "Actually, I want to start living at your place from today." I heard this as if facing a formidable enemy, cold sweat streaming down my face. She continued on, speaking to herself. "Didn't I tell you yesterday? That person is Master T, and I am his child. Follower encountered a god. Naturally, they should assist him by his side. Praying at home is naturally not enough." I listened to these words. I got startled. She turned around and said there's no room to sleep in, so just sleep in the living room. Anyway, my house is quite big. My mind is rapidly spinning, but before I could finish pondering, she directly signaled for us to split the bill. And just at that moment, another customer came in, talking on the phone and swearing. He entered the mini-mart. Seeing this, she told me to wait for her outside. She stood at the door waiting by herself. The customer was ready to ask me for a cigarette when paying the bill. He just signaled a direction with his eyes. I asked him if it was that one. He started to scold me directly as soon as he spoke. Suddenly, my expression darkened. And the customer, seeing the situation, started scolding again. I gritted my teeth and endured it with a dark expression on my face. After paying the bill, That customer sat at the table nearby and shouted loudly. At this moment, I was suppressing the anger in my heart. I must hold it back. If things continue to be chaotic now, it will really lead to big trouble. The person finished eating and let out a burp. He left behind a mess and prepared to leave. I took it all in with my eyes. Finally, the anger that I had been suppressing erupted at this moment. "Hey! Don't you throw trash away?" The person who heard this immediately stopped in their tracks. He turned his head and looked at me. I told him, "Pick up your trash before you leave." After hearing this, he then began a string of verbal abuse. And just at that moment, another person entered. Seeing the situation, this person immediately threatened with harsh words. He left directly. Unexpectedly, as soon as he walked to the doorway, he saw the girl squatting on the side. He turned his head and started teasing her. Seeing the girl's lack of reaction, he turned his head and exclaimed, "The changes are quite good-looking." Unfortunately, these words were overheard by the girl. The girl's expression immediately stiffened. At this moment, the boss arrived at the shop. Because he couldn't reach the person who was supposed to switch shifts with me, he came directly to the store to prepare to switch shifts with me. After a quick handover, the time has come to late night. It's raining heavily outside. The girl is still waiting outside. I handed her an umbrella when I saw her. I told her to hurry home. I didn't expect that she blushed and said she wanted to go to my house. I was about to stop her. Before I could say anything, she walked ahead without waiting for me to speak. And so, we started on our way home. On the way back, I was pondering how to handle this. It seemed like this crazy woman really wanted to stay at my house. Before I could finish my thoughts, she stopped directly, looked at me, and said, "Should that person over there be alive? Or should they be dead?" It turned out to be the customer from before. I immediately tightened my grip on the umbrella in my hand. Unexpectedly, my actions were directly noticed by her. Later, she handed the luggage to me and said, "Help me take the luggage back. I will take that person back to Master T to have a look. Master T will decide whether he lives or dies. See you later." She turned around and walked toward that person. When she reached him, she spoke. "My home is just around the corner. Do you want to come in for a drink?" Upon hearing this, the man agreed and followed. The girl turned around and prepared to take him back. But unexpectedly, he grabbed her by the hair directly. It turned out that this person understood her tricks. He said directly, "Do you think I don't know what you're up to? Let's go! We'll just go to the alley." The girl immediately started cursing at him. But the man didn't listen to her. He dragged her, getting ready to go to the alley. No matter how the girl struggled, it was to no avail. The man then threatened her, saying if she struggled again, he would knock her out. And at this moment, I, who had returned to the room, saw this scene through the window. I rushed out directly. When he wasn't paying attention, I grabbed a brick and hit him without hesitation, knocking him down to the ground. I looked at the person I had knocked down, and my heart started beating uncontrollably. I stood there dumbfounded. Then the woman screamed at me to snap out of it. Coming back to my senses, I dragged him into the house directly. The rain washed away the blood on the ground completely. That's how I dragged him back to Amir's room. I crouched shivering at the door. The sound of Amir chewing filled my mind. Although it wasn't the first time doing this, my heart was still beating violently. By the way, that woman! I turned to look at her. Is it because of this woman? And at this moment, she also turned her head to give me a gloomy glance. A sinister smile hung on her face, making me even more frightened. She then asked me what's wrong. I didn't respond, just tremblingly told her that I would go back to my room to rest first. Meanwhile, on the other side, someone was investigating the recent disappearances of people and just finished dealing with one person. Not only was she not afraid, she went straight into my room and saw that I was asleep. She turned and went straight to the room of Amir, who had turned into a monster. She looked at the monster sleeping in front of her. A flush of red appeared on her face. Master T. Finishing speaking, she caressed Monster's body. Monster instantly opened its eyes. It slowly stood up. Not only was the woman unafraid, she muttered something under her breath. Master T, I finally see you. Please grant me your blessing. After hearing this, the monster immediately began to show its teeth and grin. It opened its mouth wide and headed towards her. Seeing this, she was finally frightened and fell to the ground, trembling, saying, Master T, I am your servant. I am here to serve you. But the monster paid no attention to her. Opening its big mouth, it was about to swallow her. Just at this critical moment, I pushed open the door directly. I shouted, Amir! Don't! What are you doing? We agreed not to eat people randomly. After listening to me, the monster moved aside. I walked to her side. Luckily, she was not hurt. She who was following behind me asked me if I could communicate with it. I said to her, Did Amir admit he was wrong and apologize? Unexpectedly, after hearing this, the woman turned her head to look at that monster with a crazy smile. In my heart I thought, This person is Theo. The next day arrived. I was woken up by a buzzing noise. The woman actually took the initiative to clean the room. She said, After all, this is where Master T lives. As a follower, of course, I have to help him clean up. I immediately feel like this person is beyond help. Later, I went with her to a restaurant and started eating a meal. I asked her why she kept calling Amir Master T. She was surprised to hear that. She immediately revealed a creepy smile and said, Master T is here to save us. He is here to trial the scum of the world. I heard her words. Cold sweat immediately poured down. Sure enough, she actually worships Amir as a god. Before I could even finish thinking, she looked shyly at me and asked, How many people are currently on trial for Santiago Master T? I suddenly felt at a loss as to what to do, but she continued speaking. I have acted as the agent for Master T. I have personally conducted the trial. Eliminating scum is our job. Now, it is Master T who will conduct the trial personally. I am really happy. She then showed a sinister smile. I felt a chill in my heart. What exactly is she saying? In other words, has she always been doing it herself? And at this moment, a cry of alarm. This sound pulled us back from our ghostly thoughts. An altercation arose between the bald man and a girl after he harassed her. The bald man continued to harass the girl. I watched the scene. It was disgusting. She then called me directly with a strange smile and said, How about it? Does that person need to stand trial? My mind began to waver. Trial? Yes. Maybe it's really a trial. And at this moment, on the other side, Amir, who had turned into a monster, suddenly split open and began to transform. The time has come to evening. I'm walking on my way to work thinking, what does trial mean, as Zoe said? I didn't finish thinking before the sudden blaring of the horn brought me back to reality. It turned out to be a teenager cursing at me from behind. I don't want to cause trouble. I walked to the side, giving him way. But unexpectedly, this person cursed at me before leaving, saying, Blocking the way. He then stopped the car. He directly gestured a middle finger at me. But I also ignored it. I turned around and went to work at the mini-mart. The boss and others also knew about the missing population nearby. Fortunately, they didn't suspect me for now. After work, I bought some things and returned home. I didn't expect Zoe was still kneeling on the floor, praying towards Amir's room. I remind her not to stay here and ask her to quickly return to her room. She smiled at me and nodded in response. Then she asked me if I had dinner, and immediately ordered fried chicken. At this point, we had no idea that the monster was undergoing a transformation. Time was passing by minute. Our fried chicken order had arrived. When I opened the door, it turned out to be the same boy as before. He asked me for the delivery fee, but I had already paid through the app. The boy, who was chewing nonstop, said, "It's already past midnight. You have to pay extra." I didn't think too much and went back to the room to get money for him. Because I have to endure now. I can't make the situation any bigger. Then I handed him the money with a peaceful attitude. He directly snatched it away. He then left this place. When we were ready to start eating, I found that the fried chicken packaging had been opened. Looks like that person stole and ate the fried chicken. I didn't think much of it. I told Zoe to just eat it as it is. Unexpectedly, Zoe actually called the fried chicken restaurant again. She is planning to have them send another order of fried chicken over. Then she gave me a sly smile. The young man, upon receiving the order, began to curse all the way to the delivery. When he arrived, he angrily knocked on the door. The girl opened the door. The young man was about to start complaining. Zoe lunged at him with a knife. After he reacted, he kicked her to the ground with one kick. I ran out immediately when I heard the commotion. I asked what had happened. But unexpectedly, Zoe had already fallen to the ground. The boy cursed angrily at Zoe, calling her a crazy woman. Zoe smiled and said, "What a pity! If I hadn't worn a helmet, I could have chopped at your head." The young man who heard this went into a rage and pulled out the knife from his body. He rushed towards Zoe. And then I kicked him. I kicked him to the side. I quickly asked Zoe if she was okay. But unexpectedly, she then revealed a mysterious smile and said, "He needs to undergo a trial." The smile on her face made the hair on my back stand up in a crazy way. But I thought about it for a moment. I shouted towards the room next door, "Amir, come out and eat this." And at this moment, the transformed Amir into a monster showed no reaction at all. I turned around and grabbed the person, dragging them towards Amir's room. But I didn't expect that I called several times. Still no response. I turned my head to look at Amir, who was still in the room. However, I found that at this moment it had actually turned into a huge cocoon. And the boy took advantage of this opportunity. He realized it and headbutted me, knocking me to the ground. Afterward, he just beat me up. Just when he was tired. Zoe came up to him, ready to attack again. But he unexpectedly reacted. He turned and threw a punch at Zoe. But he was also stabbed by Zoe. Then, the man turned around and charged again. He tackled Zoe to the ground. Then he lifted his head and delivered a header. But it seems that the man has lost too much blood. Now he has begun to lose strength. And just at this moment, I directly pierced his neck with a knife. In the end, that person fell to the ground. After I dragged him into Amir's room, I started treating Zoe's wound after a while. The room's door was knocked on again. The police had actually come to the door. When the person at the door found no sound inside the room, he was prepared to leave. However, he discovered that the takeout box on the floor was covered in blood stains. Before this, he told a colleague, "The missing people all have one thing in common. They have all been to that mini-mart during that time period. It was during my working hours." But his colleagues didn't take it seriously. Then he came to my house alone, ready to search. When I heard that the police were at the door, I felt nervous again. I immediately covered Zoe's mouth next to me, telling her to keep quiet. The police outside received a call from a colleague. He turned around and prepared to leave. Inside the room, I heard his footsteps fading away. I instantly collapsed to the ground. Little did I know that the next moment, he turned around, holding a crowbar, and began prying open the door. I became alert as soon as I heard the sound. Just as the person was frantically trying to pry open the door, I spoke up. I shouted loudly, "Wait! There's someone inside!" But that person didn't care much and kicked the pry bar, opening the door to the room. He entered the room. He took out a gun and asked us to put down our weapons. I was trembling, trying to explain something. But he shouted loudly, "Santiago! You are Santiago, right? Put down your weapon now, or I will shoot." I heard this and started trembling. I realized that this person was unable to communicate with me. I shouted towards Amir's room, "Amir, come out and help me with this." It seemed to have heard my call. Monster Amir gradually walked out of the room. The person's face changed drastically upon seeing the situation. He stood still in a daze. After a moment, he began attacking it frantically. But it seems that these attacks have no effect on Amir. Only to see the transformed Amir's neck can stretch several meters. It swallowed the person in one bite. I also stood there dumbfounded when I saw the scene, because I had never seen Amir like this before. I tried to communicate with it. "Amir, is that you?" After the monster swallowed the man, it turned towards me and said, "I am Santiago. What's going on?" Just as I was about to ask what the situation was, Zoe dragged something over and shouted at me, "Santiago, come help." I immediately asked her what she was doing, and she replied, "Someone is definitely going to call the police because of the gunshots. We need to escape before they arrive." I heard this and immediately froze in place, trembling all over. My mind was starting to become unclear. Zoe slapped me in the face to snap me out of it. "It's been 2 minutes since the gunshot started. We need to start moving to a different location immediately." I was about to say that innocent people were being killed. We should avenge them. But I never expected Zoe to interrupt me and say, "He just went through a trial. Not being killed. It's just a fair punishment." After hearing this, I was stunned in place for a while. We started our escape journey with Amir, and after we left, a large number of police officers also arrived downstairs of our house. We went to a scrapyard in the suburbs. Zoe gave me a look, then went straight into the scrapyard. Looking around, except for the factory with lights on, there was no one around. Seeing this, Zoe called me in. I followed her into the factory area, watching her figure disappear, still having many concerns in my heart. And Zoe said to me, "There is no better way now. Doing nothing doesn't mean others won't catch up." Just as I was about to say something, she interrupted me and said, "Don't worry. We will be fine." She then turned and walked towards the factory with lights on. Zoe looked through the window and saw a person sitting in a chair, snoring. Later, Zoe and I came to the person's side. We woke up the person. He woke up startled by the situation. Zoe held something and said, "Be honest. We won't harm you." The person heard this and nodded with sweat pouring down. On the other side at the moment, the colleague of the person before is investigating this matter. He then communicates with a forensic doctor. He suddenly remembered the note that the person had passed to him in the restaurant. He hurriedly went back to the restaurant, rummaged through the trash can. He finally found it in the garbage pile behind the restaurant. And at this point, we blindfolded and tied up the worker at the waste station to a chair. After investigating the surroundings, Zoe returned to the room. I remained silent for a while before speaking. I asked her about everything that had happened so far. How many people has she personally put on trial? Zoe replied with a smile on her face, saying, "I'm not sure. I haven't counted. It should be around 30 people. Why do you suddenly ask this?" I hesitated and said, "It's nothing." Then I looked at the tied-up staff and asked, "How should we deal with this person?" She said excitedly, "Go ask Master T. He will decide the fate of those who should be eliminated through trial. Those who are meant to live will surely help us." Later, we brought him to the factory where Amir was located. The staff managed to remove the hood covering his head. Just as he was about to break free, a rustling sound nearby alerted him. He looked up and saw Amir transformed into a monster approaching, which terrified him. The monster extended its neck to glance at him, and they locked eyes briefly before the monster retracted its neck. Then Zoe and I approached him. Zoe said to him, "Congratulations! You have received the blessing of Master T." Later, he was helped out of the factory by us while trembling. We untied him from the bindings. The man spoke up. "Who are you? What is inside there?" Zoe explained. "That is Master T. You have been reborn. People who should not exist in the world will be executed by Master T. The people needed in the world will be reborn. Master T is the trial in the world to come." After hearing these words, the person hesitated and said, "Executioner. It's actually an executioner." Soon, a loud blast of a steam whistle interrupted our thoughts. Just then, a person drove a car towards the factory area, shouting loudly for the gate to be opened. I suddenly felt nervous. And the worker who had just escaped a disaster turned around and said, "I'll go check it out. You said that person is the executioner, right? That kid at the door is a disgusting scum. Please make sure to trial him," he said as he walked towards the door without looking back. The man at the door was still loudly shouting to open it. The staff saw this and welcomed him in. He immediately prepared to take the man to the warehouse where Monster was located. The man spat on the ground and said, "I heard that prices have gone up here. Is it true?" The staff was about to say something upon seeing the situation. Unexpectedly, the man walked straight up to him and slapped him hard across the face. Then the man launched into a string of verbal abuse. But the staff seemed to have figured something out and held back their temper. But this person seemed unwilling to give up. He started throwing punches and kicks at him again. He knocked the staff member to the ground. He didn't wait for him to speak before stopping him. There was another round of fists and feet colliding. Zoe and I hid behind the pile of scrap, watching as things were about to spiral out of control. We picked up things and threw them up. We knocked him down to the ground. The man turned his head and cursed at us. He saw us holding things and getting ready to take action. He picked up something from the ground, suddenly stood up and said, "Bastard! Who are you?" I don't have time to listen to his nonsense. I waved the iron rod in my hand and rushed up. But unexpectedly, he blocked it with a backhand strike. The force bounced me back, and I fell to the ground. And Zoe took advantage of this gap to rush up as well. But the next second, she was injured by his backhand hit. He then began to angrily scold us. Zoe, on the other hand, took the gun from that person and loaded it, pointing it at him, saying, "Scum! Look over here." I was shocked to see the scene. The man trembled as he looked at the gun in Zoe's hand and asked, "Where did you get the gun from? Is it a real gun?" Zoe pointed the gun at him and said, "Just do as I say, okay?" When the man heard this, he thought that the toy gun was about to charge towards Zoe. There was only a muffled sound. The staff member knocked him out from behind, and then we tied him up and threw him into the warehouse where Monster was located. And then he slowly regained consciousness. After he sat up, he angrily scolded us at the door. But he turned around and became frightened, only to see Amir, who had turned into a monster, walking slowly towards him. He was just about to ask for help from us. The next second, he disappeared without a trace. The staff member who witnessed this scene stood there in shock, locking eyes with the monster. He seemed as if brainwashed, kneeling on the ground. He started kowtowing, shouting loudly, "Executioner, thank you." Zoe then turned to me beside her and said, "See that? That is God. He has come to save us." I stared blankly, thinking about what she said. God? Is it really God? On the other side, the police are currently retrieving surveillance footage, and her phone rang at this moment. The phone immediately conveyed the message of the missing handgun. At this moment, I have no idea that outside a church somewhere, someone has no idea about it. A missionary wearing glasses is welcoming a follower at the door, and at this moment, a car is speeding towards them and stops at the entrance, only to see a yellow-haired man open the car door and start smoking. The missionary, seeing this, came to his side and asked, "Excuse me, may I ask what brings you here?" The yellow-haired man impatiently replied, "I'm here to take care of something. I will move the car in a moment." The missionary said, "I am sorry. This is private property of the church. Only followers can park here." The man, lacking manners, spat on the ground. The missionary kindly advised him, "Do not spit everywhere here." The man with the yellow hair joked, "I will drive away in a moment. God will forgive me for this little thing." The missionary fell silent. Seeing that this person was unwilling to listen, he turned around and was ready to leave. The yellow-haired man looked at the missionary's back and sneered. Little did he know that danger was about to arrive. The missionary then walked up to a car and opened the trunk, taking out a package. And at that moment, the yellow-haired man was still there, spitting and smoking. But unexpectedly, the next second, an axe came towards him. The missionary stared at him without changing his expression. The yellow-haired man yelled and cursed angrily, asking him what he wanted to do. He then turned to the people around him for help. However, the people around him turned a blind eye. After a while, the screams suddenly ceased. Time passed minute by minute. The missionary is on stage promoting the doctrine to the people below. He talked a lot. Anyway, I didn't understand. The missionary continued speaking. "Our Master T will devour the scum that harms society for the sake of this world," said the missionary. The people in the audience started applauding one after another. The missionary then stepped down from the stage. Another person with oily hair and powdered face took his place. He started brainwashing the people in the audience. The missionary came down to the audience. He glanced at the person tied up next to him. It turned out to be the yellow-haired man from before. Later, he was taken to the stage by the missionary. The yellow-haired man was trembling. He had the thing pulled out of his mouth by the missionary. The yellow-haired man cleared his throat a few times, and then immediately began to call for help. And the oily-haired, powdered-faced man said, "What a proud existence! He still hasn't realized the sins he has committed. Next, let's start judging him." Missionary opened a mechanism. A noose slowly descended. Missionary put the noose around him. In the end, the man lost consciousness while struggling. What's even more terrifying is that no one in the audience showed any signs of fear. Instead, it was replaced by enthusiastic applause and cheering.